So, welcome to my design workroom. So this is where I do most of my designs, and what we have over there on my right side is a polar fleece design wall. I start with sometimes I start with the color of the fabrics, and then I start thinking about patterns, or it might be a new original design I want to do. Right now I have a community outreach up there, and then below that I have fabrics I brought in from Vietnam trip. And then I design as I go along. Once I'm satisfied with the layout, the colors and everything, I would start to sew and piece them all together. Like from those components there, it will go to the next stage here. And it's a lot of fun having fabric, talk to you like, your friends. And over here on top side, this other blue sheet is my inspiration. Sometimes it's like work that other people have done, postcards, like maybe vintage quilts that I might do eventually. I also teach art workshops at the public library, so these two cabinets, this bookcase, holds like the supplies that I use for the kids and adults. And this is my cutting board here, and my rulers that I use for cutting fabric. I use a rotary cutter that most quilters use. And then this is my machine where I actually will sew the pieces together. The laundry rack, I find that helps me organize future projects for community outreach or something. Or if I'm working with strips of fabric, I'll lay it and organize it here like you would on a shelf, so that it's handy to use. This is actually a wheelchair bag that we're making in one of our classes, and that's going to be donations for either the VA or Unlock's wheelchair patients. Here on this wall I have like an Aboriginal looking type of quilt that I designed. The images were all printed on a black background, and I just cut them out. And since I'm interested in archaeology, I decided, well, let me do a fantasy rainforest. So I embellished it with little beads and everything, and a little bit of this texture. So I'm all about like color, texture, visual impact, and sometimes a story that I like to tell. So this one, it is like dancing in a rainforest. That's the story I'm telling. And the background fabric happened to be just perfect with the petroglyph images. And yeah, so a lot of times we're just making stories with fabric instead of paint. Yeah. Now, my dad worked for the shipyards from 1942 to 1944. So here I've printed on fabric, I printed up his summary. That he was born in China. He was 26 at the time that he worked for the shipyards. He already had how many kids? He had 3 children. So he immigrated to the U.S. in 1931 through Angel Island. I put down that he received 97 cents an hour as a welder trainee. His union card, his contract work was the Holtman Brothers.
What's it called?
This one is called 4 Generations of Family Resemblances. My sister returned to China in '86 for the first time, and she brought back a photo of our great-grandmother, this lady here. And so my sister said, well, who she looked like? And I go, well, mom looks like her, grandpa looks like her, and then I said, yeah, I guess I'll look like her in 40 years. So that's about the same time I started doing my own family history, and so I started asking Mom, who's this lady? Who's this great-grandmother? What do you know about her? So Mom said, well, she was the midwife for the village. And it's like, wow, that's fairly important. And so I asked, well, how tall was she? When did she pass? Blah, blah, blah. So the information I did get is on the label on the back side, so that when my kids and other relatives look at this quilt, they'll be able to look on the back and see some information about our family. On this piece, once again, I was experimenting with the silk and brocade, and so these patterns here, these columns look like, and the pattern is called Chinese coin, so it's like stacks of Chinese coin. And also, the family home is next to a bamboo grove, so that's why I did the bamboo right next to it. And then the sunset, I always like to do sunsets. And I use brocade for the outside to make it stand out a little bit more. And in between I did, we were told that the family had been Christians for a long time. So that's why, you know, and both my parents have been baptized Christians here in the city. My grandfather actually was, he worked in the Philippines in the restaurant business, but they rented out their farmlands to other farmers. And so he would come home every 4 years to China. Meaning that the women in this kind of family, they were very strong, very independent. They had to look out for themselves. And basically, I made this in '96 is when I did it. So a lot of times I'll use this as a introduction for people looking for their Chinese American roots. I use this as example of how very little is known, but you know, you start from a photo and you track back the information. So, and then the back side I use calico, which is my American side. So the front is my Chinese side, and the back is my American side. I think that's more or less it. Yeah.